Hello, folks, and welcome once again to WKNI TV 25 Good News, Covington County. I got to back up on the good news end of it because for me it's not great news at all. I mean, it's good that you're here, Chief, but the reason you're here, I don't like it a bit. But I want to thank you for coming on WKNI. This is actually Tuesday. Your retirement events are today, later on as we go along here. But I never thought I'd see the day. I mean, yeah, I got to say all this. Let me talk for a second, okay? This guy and I were like oil and water many times over. But at least you had the dignity. At least you had the professionalism to be able to sit down and work things out. And that's what I like about you. Is me and you didn't agree. We'll sit here. Boy, I'll tell you what. You threw a cup of coffee, and me and you yelled at each other, and boy, we were scrapping mad. But after things went away, we kind of sat down and said, you know what? That's silly.
We have had a philosophical difference or two over
Philosophical, I like that word.
But the bottom line is, Eddie, that everybody should be professional enough to be able to respond and to provide the people with the information that when you get right down to it, the law enforcement business is the people's business. The people are the ones that need to know. It's not just the politicians or the appointed officials like the police chief. The people need to know. This is not a police state. This is the United States of America. We're not the secret police. We are the local police. So irregardless of the differences that we've had that have cropped up over the years, the bottom line is you have a job to do, and I've, throughout my 40 plus years of law enforcement, I've tried to respect the media by asking the media to respect me. And I think that's what makes it all work. If you respect the job that you do, now we may have a disagreement on what you do and how you do your job, where you may disagree with what my job is and how I do it. But basically my position has always been that, I try to respect you and the job you do, and I just ask you to respect me and the job that I do.
Well, Chief, I do, and like I say, we've all made mistakes. We've all, kind of put our nose and pushed. It's ego, it's testosterone. It's two guys. You call it philosophical. Well, I don't know. We'll leave that one alone. We'll go on. But I want to thank you for being so open. And I remember one of the first things you told me when you came into office here and we had the TV station is that, Eddie, we are going to be open with the media. We're not going to hide from you. We're going to be there. My people can talk to you. They don't have to ask permission. They can go right up to you and talk to you. I trust my people. And you've always done that with us.
Well, and that's irregardless of how we look at the position or department takes, Eddie. My idea has always been that the closer you can bring a situation to the public, the lower levels, it doesn't need to be the chief on every situation. It needs to be some of the other people in the department. And then those people in the department are out here busting their butts to do their job, then they need to be recognized on some instances for what they're doing and some appreciation. Well, there's not a lot I can do. I can't give them a bonus. I can't give them a raise. What I have to do is figure out other ways. And one of the primary ways that in management we learn is recognition. And just a little recognition, where they admit it or not, seeing oneself on TV, reading or hearing or putting a statement in the paper, whatever it is, that's recognition for a job well done in my eyes. And I think it's very important in today, in management today, especially with the millennials and the younger kids that are coming on. They're totally different. Now, in my generation, you didn't expect it. You weren't going to have a camera in your face. You weren't going to have a newspaper reporter, because that's just the way it was. Well, nowadays, things have totally changed with all the new media and the social media and all that's out there. So, yeah, I try to recognize and give my people the opportunity to be recognized and thanked for the job that they do.
Well, Chief, I can remember back when your predecessor left office, and there was a void there for a while, and then you came along, and I believe Mayor Earl brought you on back in his first administration, and you came with a history and a background in law enforcement that was quite deep, really unexpected for a community this size to come in and handle. Did you have any rathers about it beforehand?
No, when I retired from Mobile, Eddie, I was ready to go then. I had reached a point in my career, and being able to recognize and accept some things as inevitable is important. And I knew when I accepted the teaching position at the University of South Alabama, my career had changed forever. It was something that I wanted to do, but I found pretty quickly that it didn't fill the complete void that I felt. I knew I had some years left in me. And when I started looking and found this opportunity here in Andalusia, it was a godsend to me. I interviewed with the council on several occasions, and then finally sat down with the mayor, and he informed me that he had made his decision and he was going to offer me the job with council approval. It was certainly a highlight. I looked at it as a challenge, much different than what I was used to in Mobile. When one of my last assignments in Mobile was chief of detectives. Well, being chief of detectives in Mobile meant that I was in charge or in command of 165 plus personnel. Well, there's only 32 of us or 30 of us here in Andalusia. So there is a significant difference in the demands of the position, but yet being able to draw on that larger department and to input here what I felt like, and maybe that's some of the issues that I've had with people, because, and certainly some of my people, they remind me often, Chief, remember we only have 30 officers. Well, yeah, I've had to continuously remind myself, but the idea and the challenge and the mandate that I took from Mayor Earl Johnson the day he hired me, he laid out several things that he was expecting. And one of the things that he said that I'll never forget, that he wanted to develop during his administration one of the finest police departments for a city our size in this part of the country. And I took that to heart. And maybe that's been some of the issues. Maybe some of these others have said, this guy thinks too much of himself. And you know, I always hear the thing that people say, well, he's conceited and he's arrogant. Well, I'm a very humble person when you get right down to it. Arrogant, no. Confident, yes. I promise you, you won't find a person that has prepared themselves any more for their career than I've been blessed to have been prepared. The education, the special training, the positions, earning the promotions, and all the job assignments that I've had. Yeah, I'm as confident as anybody you will find. But that doesn't mean that I should relish in my accomplishments. What I tried to do was raise the bar to the very highest level that it could be raised right here in Andalusia, Alabama, and set that standard for law enforcement. My philosophy has been very simple. Why do the citizens of Andalusia not deserve the same quality of law enforcement that a Mobile, that a Montgomery, that a Birmingham deserves? Our citizens pay taxes just like everybody else. Why should we have that opinion or have that feeling that when some little something happens, we've got to go somewhere else to bring somebody in to investigate or to handle a situation? The citizens of Andalusia should be offended at anybody that purports that theory, because we are qualified, we are educated, we are trained, we are equipped to do the job that is placed before us. And if I were a citizen of Andalusia, knowing that what we have here, and then somebody else says, oh, we can't do this, we've got to go outside, we've got to protect the integrity, we've got to protect this, or we've got to protect that. Well, in analysis of it, that's BS. We can do the job here. I had a challenge from the mayor, and I have lived up to the best of my ability to that challenge. And it's frustrating when my people go out here and bust their butts I mean day and night, 20 hours a day working on a case, and then turn around and have somebody say, well, I'm not satisfied that this has been done correctly. I'm going to go get somebody else to come do it. Well, those somebody else's show up, and what's the first stop they make? They have to come to us and say, Chief, Lieutenant, Captain, whoever, why am I here? What am I doing here? So, yeah, we've done our best, Eddie. All I ask for is for anybody that questions that to give me an objective view. By objective, I'm not mean subjective. Don't come in there with an agenda. Don't come in there with a preconceived notion. Just look what we have, how we got it, where did it, how is it being used, and are our people competent to use that equipment? And if anybody will be objective with us, I think the answer to all of those questions will be absolutely yes.
Wow. And Chief, I can say from experience with working with your department as part of the media that other agencies have found themselves calling on your department to have that investigative purposes or what was it, vehicular homicide group that you started, the AFES that you started. These are just some programs that I recall.
Well, what really amazed me, Eddie, and I'd say somewhat offended, and I discussed it with one of the TV stations out of Montgomery. They aired a program some 3 weeks ago which they touted a cooperative effort between the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department and the Prattville Police Department over a fingerprint system, as you just referred to, called AFIS, right. Automated Fingerprint Identification System. Well, the particular system that we have right here in lowly little Andalusia, Alabama, is from a company called AFIX, A-F-I-X. Tracker is the name of it. And they were touting this as revolutionary, that they were just so enthralled with it. It was such capabilities, cutting edge technology. Eddie, we bought that system in 2003. Mm-hmm. That company uses a map of the United States in their advertising, and everywhere one of their units or their systems is in place is a little red dot. There has been a red dot on Andalusia since 2003. There were only 2 in the state of Alabama. We had Pensacola, Florida, the Baldwin County Sheriff's Department, the Mobile County Sheriff's Department, Prattville, and I can't remember, there's 10 agencies that came to us to ask us how we liked our system. It's revolutionary. It was really revolutionary in 2003. Right. And you can go back and look, and you may remember we purchased that with a meth grant. Mm-hmm. Everybody laughed at us. We told them about this meth grant that we were applying for. It was a national effort. This is one of my proudest accomplishments. It was going to be $40,000. So we started working on it. Mike Boland was the commander of the drug task force. Everybody laughed at us. You can't get this national grant. It's a competitive grant nationwide. Well, we worked, and we worked hard at it, and we got it. It wasn't $40,000, $222,222.22. The vast majority of which went to the drug task force, and it helped us buy this equipment that was revolutionary, that was state of the art at the time. And we envisioned this county-wide or region-wide fingerprint system that would help every agency in the area. We had Wade Garrett at the time, was extremely excited about it. I budgeted money for us to import fingerprints from other agencies so we could build the database. That's the secret to the whole thing, is building your database. If you can build a big enough database, then you have a better chance of identifying a suspect. Well, we rocked on, and the sad reality of it is, Eddie, nobody would participate. It was too revolutionary, I guess, or I don't know what the reason is, but we offered our services to anybody. Wade Garrett worked 12 or 13 cases for Okaloosa County Sheriff's Department. He did some work for Walton County, and of course he was doing work for us and the drug agents that called on him. And yet we couldn't get our own other local agencies to participate. So here's a system in Montgomery that they're touting as revolutionary in 2013. And the citizens of Andalusia had the benefit of that system in 2003. So how far ahead of the curve, and we're not talking about a small rural agency. We're talking about Montgomery County SO. We're talking about Prattville Police Department. 2013, we had it in 2003.
I remember the day that Wade called me up and told me he had something, APHIS or something to that effect, and I was like, really, I'm sorry to hear about that, and hope you can heal. But I think we done the first story on it, and he showed us how it worked, and it was imperative that all the agencies, I remember the effort that you made with the Sheriff's Department at the time, the administration, of trying to get all the records and everything so you could input them in there.
We had a target of 3,000 people.
Right.
That had been booked into the Sheriff's Department. I had budgeted for the cost of digitizing all those print records. And it's expensive, it's labor intensive. But I had budgeted to pay for it, had money to pay for it in the budget for the grant. And we kept missing deadline after deadline because we never could get that data. We've never received any data from the Sheriff's Department.
To this day.
To this day. This system had the potential of being revolutionary in Covington County. And rather than being utilized by everybody, it's been utilized by Okaloosa County, Walton County, and our own officers, and anybody that's asked for it. And the thing now that's so great about the system, Eddie, is that everybody that owns an AFIX, AFIX tracker, and there are hundreds of them all over the Southeast, anybody that owns those now through the internet, I can search Daphne's database, I can search Pensacola's database, I can search Prattville, I can search Montgomery County. All of those databases are accessible now through the internet.
And it's so important. It's kind of like, and I want to describe it for a second. You do fingerprints in the old way where they do the ink on the card, and then you have to sit there and go, well, you know what? Let's see if we can match this with anybody.
Yes.
And then you sit there and you contact Op PD, you contact Florella, you contact, Covington County, and you try to get the hard copies together. So a fingerprint expert, which was Wade Garrett, I believe at the time, would have to sit there and try to match fingerprints, countless hours of trying to match one set of fingerprints to dozens at that time. And what this machine did was, with all the information, it was important to have everybody involved in it because you combine all those agencies together, and within seconds they could pull up the identification if that person's been involved in anything else.
Let me give you the exact stats on that case, the one you referred to with Wade. The Drug Task Force had made a case, and of course all the instruments in a meth lab, a glass or whatever, fingerprints love glass, and glass love fingerprint. Wade had this fingerprint. It was extraordinarily good. Many, many points on it. So he had looked at it for 15 months. He'd been trying to identify that print for 15 months. Hundreds and hundreds of hours spent looking one to the other. So when we get the AFIX system, he told the guy that installed it, he said, I want to run this print first. The exact time is 15 seconds.
Wow.
From the time that he scanned that unknown latent fingerprint into the system until that system gave us a list of 4 people, and the suspect was number 1 on the list. It scored by points, and his score was off the sheet. 15 seconds. And all of this has been available to everybody in this area since 2003, 10 years now. And the use of it is so, well, we use it daily in the police department.
But unfortunately,
outside of the police department here, it's been used by other agencies, other states, far more than it's been used by anybody else. And that has been available. It's been there. You mentioned assisting others. We've said from the beginning that everything that we have, we got the first grant to $222,000. We ended up, there were 41 agencies in the United States, 2 agencies in the state of Alabama, Andalusia Police Department and Jackson County Sheriff's Department in Northeast Alabama were the only 2 agencies that qualified. Now, did it take work? Absolutely. Turned around, backed that up in just a couple of years later with an appropriations grant from Senator Shelby, $235,000. So almost $500,000 was pumped into this area specifically, and the vast majority of it went to the Drug Task Force. And you know, I've been accused, Eddie. We opted out of the task force a few months ago, and I've been criticized widely throughout this county by certain politicians about dropping out of the task force. Well, when you look at the amount of money that we had invested in the Drug Task Force, I bought them clothes. I bought the computers that they had in the cars. I bought the camera systems that they were using. There was a multitude of expenses that we bought, stuff that we bought to enhance the safety
Now,
equipment.
the citizens of the community bought that.
Well, this tax money that generated into grants went to buy all of that. We wouldn't have had it had we not gotten the grants from Washington. So when the money comes in, we turn around and funnel it into the Drug
So
Task Force.
you had the what they call the grant writers and people that were writing the grants and requesting the grants.
That was me.
Okay. And so when you say I did this and I did that, because some people are criticizing you for just that. I did this and I did that. But I is there. Okay. I was the one that wrote the grant. I was the one that did the research. I was the one that prepared everything, and I was the one that received the grant.
Well, and let me share this with you, Ed. It was always amazing to me, and it didn't get any publicity at the time. We swallowed hard and went on about it. The commander of the Drug Task Force from the beginning, the man that built the Covington County Drug Task Force, was Mike Boland.
That's right.
He was a lieutenant assigned to the task force, belonged to the police department. I brought him in to my office to help me with the grant. This was significant. I saw the potential of what I didn't know how much money, but I saw a potential. So he was brought in to help me with the grant. We worked tirelessly at this grant. We didn't have any grant writer help. We did it ourselves. We pulled all the data, we pulled all the information, we pulled all the figures to make sure and to show what we were doing. And as a reward for that, the board called him in and fired him because of complaints from some of the task force members, one of which is still there, complained because Lieutenant Boland was too hard on them and he was spending too much time on working on other stuff. Even though his work on other stuff brought in $222,000 to purchase high-tech equipment with, they criticized him, and the board of the task force fired Mike Boland because he had been working on other things too much.
Let me, I want to go there, okay? And I know, I want you to, I want you to be comfortable with what you're saying, okay? And you're doing that. I got to ask you, okay, you heard a lot about this recently, about this cold case files that they're digging up, and they're trying to solve all these cold cases. Obviously, you can't talk about it. But if the cooperation between the agencies were there, okay, like the APHIS, they could have looked things up. Because if somebody was arrested back in 2000 or 1999, and the fingerprints are sitting over at the county jail in a room over there I know where they were at one time, in a room that used to be an office over there, and files and files and files and files were in that room when I worked there of nothing but fingerprints. So somebody would have to physically go in there, compare those fingerprints with one that they took from a crime scene. Could have been one of these cold cases, and things could have been identified had these things been put into the APHIS. Is there any truth to that?
Well, in theory, yes. Now, in reality, in that case, Eddie, just real quickly, I'll tell you, having a majority of my experience been in homicide investigation, I've worked on countless numbers of cold cases. I was very disappointed because he had no reason, but never did I have any inquiries from anybody about any suggestions or ideas that I would be able to offer. It offended me because
Here's a man that has years and years of experience in investigations, and somebody that has nowhere near that amount. Nobody even called you.
yes, nobody called me, and as far as logistically, I had 2 officers that were on the cold case a cold case squad. I never even received a request for those 2 officers to be included on it. Now, supposedly, somebody made a phone call and I was not available. Well, I've carried a link since I've been here, which has a link service, push to talk, and a telephone on it. Very seldom am I away from that link. That was just a situation where somebody took advantage or assumed, I guess, that I would agree with it, or just, insulted the Andalusia Police Department by not even asking permission for a person to be on that squad. So, my people participated, and I told them to go forth and put every bit of effort into it because I was interested in the Nebby Barton case. I received information from 2 different confidential sources during my career here about Nebby Barton. When I first received the information, nobody was working on it. So I called Lieutenant Paul Dean in, and he was a sergeant at the time because I had confidence in him, and he was outside of the daily activities. He was at the Drug Task Force, and I thought that would give him the opportunity to work outside of the confines of daily assignments at the police department. We worked on it, started gathering information and started piecing things together. And we came up with our second source, which provided some invaluable information. I mean, just it's impossible to categorize the importance of the information that we received. And we really got interested in it then. And we made some inquiries in Montgomery about the possibility of fingerprints. Because back to Wade Garrett. Wade was here at the time that Barton was killed, and Wade had done a lot of work on that case. It had been sent to Montgomery, and those prints that were captured were constantly being run in the statewide system. So just as you said, yes, the circumstances you described are true, but it was being checked. And so it didn't just lay there inactive for all of those years.
I guess my point is that there's thousands of fingerprints that are still sitting somewhere that aren't in the APIS system.
Yeah, well, that would be correct because there is a time when it started. Of course, now what the state tried to do is any prints that were sent in by any agency, they've gone back and tried to digitize and get all of those prints, or as many of those sets of prints as possible in the database in Montgomery. And then, of course, those prints are then forwarded to Clarksville, West Virginia, I believe it is, where the national system is, the FBI system. So there's the potential that those prints had been checked. But then we hit a brick wall because we were told it wasn't our case, and this was before the cold case squad was formed, and the people in Montgomery refused to share any information with us because they had been told not to give out any information on this case to anybody except the agency that was handling the case, which was somebody else, which I understood that and didn't like it. It was not professional the way it was handled, but it was the prerogative of the person that's in charge of that department to request that to happen. So we put it down, and then, of course, the cold case squad was created, and we are where we are today.
Okay. All right. Well, we've got the fingerprint situation out there. It was a subject that I covered years ago because I questioned why, the universal ability to take somebody that was arrested back in 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, their fingerprints are sitting in a box. And if they're never involved with law enforcement again, they went out and done something later on, it'd be hard to find them and put that together with identification because again, if folks would only know how the fingerprint system used to be up till about 2003. And, turn of the millennium is when all this technology came
Well,
about.
and I guess that was one of the most frustrating things, Eddie, because being from where I was, I knew I had been involved in an AFIX system implementation in Mobile, in the Mobile Police Department and the Mobile County Sheriff's Department, a cooperative effort. So I had a background in it, and I knew how important it was. And when this AFIX system came about on a desktop computer, doing what it used to take a mainframe that wouldn't fit in this entire building to do. It was so revolutionary, and it was so frustrating because I knew what the potential could be. The two crimes that are most affected by fingerprints are burglaries and thefts. Those are the two that are most results come from. Well, that's what plagues us here in this county, in our area. So I saw the opportunity to take advantage of it. That's why I tried, and I knew it would be a financial burden on other agencies to try to do it. So that's why I budgeted the money in the grant request. That was approved. The money was sitting there. All the other agencies had to do was pick up the cards, hand them to me. I would send them to a company in Mississippi that was going to scan them, digitize them, put them on DVDs or CDs, send them back to us. We put them into the computer. Voila, our database is enhanced. My target to start with was 3,000.
Wow.
And as of today, November the 26th, 2013, that many records have been produced to the Andalusia Police Department.
Can I ask you just straight out, what do you think the reason is that didn't happen? I mean, today's...
Eddie, I wish I could explain it. I wish I could give the citizens of this community a valid answer to that. All I know is for sure, I wrote the grant to buy the equipment. We bought the equipment. It's installed at the Andalusia Police Department. It's running right now. It's functioning right now, today. And why we couldn't get those records, why we couldn't get the cooperative effort. And I get, it's one of those things where the finger gets pointed at me quite often for being disruptive of whatever. But I'll remind citizens of one thing. When you point a finger at somebody else,
Yeah.
there's 3 or 4 pointed right back at yourself. So, I don't know. I wish I could honestly answer that question, because the citizens are the ones that are adversely affected. The people that have been burglarized, the people that have had thefts, the people that have had cases where fingerprints may have made the difference. They're the ones that's suffering. They're the ones that are not being provided with the quality of law enforcement that should be provided to them. That's that bar. Here it is, right up here. We've got the system. It's functioning. It's there. Why isn't it being used? I don't know.
All right. While we're on this roll, let's go ahead and I remember the traffic homicide unit that you put together, quite an expensive ordeal, again by grants. A lot of training went into that. We do our own investigation now of traffic accidents and things like that. We don't have to call the state troopers in unless it's in their territory. Is that correct?
That's correct. And basically that equipment is referred to as the forensics mapping equipment, which is nothing other than a survey instrument. A total station is what it's referred to, and it is literally a laser that measures distances and establishes angles. I'll give you a quick statistic. Brandon Laster was killed in a car wreck out on 84 East. Horrible situation. One of the finest young men I had ever met. Was trying to offer him a job, and he decided he wanted to work for the county. I got to know his mother, and I think the world of her. Such a dear woman. Brandon was killed, and the scene from where his car landed, where his body was, to where the other vehicle ended up was 376 feet. Remember it well. There was a debris field just scattered. There were pieces and parts everywhere. Skid marks. Things that are important for experts to reconstruct an accident scene. Things that can tell an expert speed, where the crush factor was, where the point of impact was, things that are extremely important in reconstructing an accident scene and to establishing down to a finite point who was at fault and the limits of liability, if you would. We go out and we map that scene. We use that equipment. And when it was all over with, you work your scene, you go point to point to point to point, and it's storing all of this data in a hard drive. It's going to then import into a program, a computer program, and then that program does it all for you. It does your scale drawing, and it will print out a million copies of it if you need a million copies. The last thing that you do is your quality control measurement, which then tells you how accurate your measurements were and your angles and everything else. Our quality control measure was 3/1000ths of an inch off. That's the thickness of a piece of that notebook paper laying right over there. Now, you can't take a steel tape measure. You can't take one of the little roller wheels that you see people often using and establish a crime scene or an accident scene at that degree of accuracy. There again, this is a service that's provided to the citizens of Andalusia or the citizen anywhere. You mentioned a while ago, we've mapped several homicide scenes outside of the city because, and people say, well, why? What are you worried about? Well, it's the right thing to do. It's the quality thing to do. It's the accurate thing to do to establish an absolute, as completely as possible. And when you can measure a scene that's 376 feet in length and your error factor is only 3/1000ths of an inch, that may not be perfection, but it's mighty close to it. And that's what our goal is to provide that to the citizens. The citizens deserve it. When something happens, they deserve to have it worked and processed in as high professional standards as possible. It's just like camera systems. I spent several thousands of dollars buying my people quality camera equipment, unmatched in this area. Well, the good Lord blessed us, Eddie. We get a school. We get a class right out here at the Wilbur Williams Training Center. And the federal government hosted that class. They allowed us to bring in 13 agencies to go to a basic photography school. And guess what they did when that school was over with? Every piece of equipment that those 13 students used during that week's class, they took it home with them. Almost $2,000 worth of camera equipment. And we could only find one other agency in Covington County that would participate in that school and that equipment offer. Everybody else came from somewhere else.
Wow.
So it's just, like I said, the bottom line is professionalism, it's unequaled capabilities, and that was our desire to be able to afford that and offer that to the citizens that we serve.
Another thing that sticks in my mind with I'm going through some of the accomplishments in the Andalusia Police Department since your tenure. The swim team that we have here in Andalusia is second to none.
Yeah, absolutely. The divers.
The divers. I'm sorry, swim team.
Swim team.
Yeah, no, they're not participating in the Olympics.
We don't swim in stuff that most other people do.
Right. They've done several body recoveries. They've done, unfortunately, just a few months ago, a young child.
Yes, sir.
The stepson of a local law enforcement officer tragically drowned here in the county. And let me ask you a question, all right? This is right next to home, okay? That child is in the river. If we did not have a dive team in Andalusia, where would the next professional recovery team would have come from?
It would have been a volunteer group out of Houston County, most likely. Not an official. If this was, their unit is voluntary. We have one of the few dive teams, Eddie, and as you said, they are very well equipped. A local politician made fun of me when I wrote up the proposal to take advantage of some Homeland Security funding, and he made light of it. He said, well, Wilbur, you only have 2 or 3 little lakes in the city. And I thought that was pretty much endemic of the attitude. So we went ahead. We have divers that are Homeland Security trained and Homeland Security certified. And there is a little downside to that because of all of these thousands and thousands of dollars worth of training that we have been provided at no cost to the citizens. The equipment that we've been provided. Yeah, yes, if a particular incident should occur somewhere else and they need a diver or 2, they have the prerogative of calling the Andalusia Police Department and said, hey, you know, all of that equipment, all that training your divers got, send them to here or send them to there. Small price to pay. But we are fully equipped. We have the hard hats, the communication system that should it be needed. But the main thing, Eddie, and I look back on it, we have a rescue and recovery boat that belongs to the county. I mean, it's not the police department. We went out and found some of the latest sonar equipment that's available anywhere. And we have put that boat in the water 9 times on request from other agencies. We have located and helped recover bodies in 7 of those 9 trips. The other 2, one of the bodies was found a week later downstream further than we thought he could be, so we just weren't searching the right area. I never will forget one of the most dramatic cases was over here in Geneva where the P and the Chattahoochee come together. Young man, 14 or 15 years old, had gone in that afternoon. It was some big deal they have there every year. Chief Lindsay had called me and said, Wilbur, don't you have a boat? Can you come help us? We've been out here for hours. Houston County had been there for hours searching. We loaded up. We got there. It took us an hour or so to get there. We had been there 27 minutes when we found the kid's body. And Eddie, it was so remarkable because we really didn't know how the equipment was going to function. But I was present myself, and you could literally see the kid in the water in a grotesque way, and you could tell where his swimming trunks were. This system is so sensitive, it would show the difference in the skin and his swimming suit. And these, like I said, there's 7 success stories. Well, to that politician who, you know, belittled me and made fun of my efforts to get this equipment and get these capabilities, I would wonder how he would feel if it was one of his family members in that water, because our objective is to shorten the time that victim is in the water.
It's for closure.
It's for closure. It's for helping those people deal with a situation that's just so traumatic. You're standing there on the banks. You know your loved one is right out there somewhere, and there's nothing you can do.
Right.
And here you have the authorities running around looking and, you know, waving their hands. Well, when we get there, we show up with the equipment and the expertise to address it and to do something. And so to that politician, yes, you belittled me, you made fun of me, but sir, we have one of the finest rescue and recovery systems in this part of the country, and 7 families have benefited from our efforts.
Closure.
Closure.
Something very important, something like that. In fact, I just heard about there's a young lady missing right now from our community that something strange is going on with that, and you know, phone messages and things like that. It takes that family a lot of effort and energy that they're worry that they're going through. I can't imagine what it would be like. She's got children that are wondering where she's at. And when you have professionalism, when you have the technology, it makes life a lot easier for the families that are affected by this.
And like I said, all we've ever asked and all we've ever required is, I don't expect any gratitude or platitudes from the other agencies around. I'm way past that. The only thing that I ask is for a call. Just call and ask. You don't have to talk to me. I know you probably don't want to talk to me. Nobody ever had to talk to me. They could talk to my others because I have enough confidence in my subordinates that they have been given the latitude to make some crucial decisions. They know when they can go jump in that truck and hook up to that boat and go. They don't have to have my permission. They only have to have a request from a legitimate agency to come assist with it. And like I said, all of this, everything that we've done, the $500,000 that we sank in, the response truck that we have, state of the art, the safety equipment, that was the first thing that I bought. The SCBAs to protect those agents when they would go into the meth labs. Everything that we did, we put all of that money into the drug task force. And then, when we opted out, we've been called, as the saying goes, we've been called, or I've been called everything except a child of God as a result of it. But it was a decision that we made. It was a decision that I approached the mayor with. He left it up to me. He said, "You're the police chief," whatever. And when we were having such a problem getting any effort in the city to address the city drug problem, I go and I beg people. I said, "Prove me wrong. Show me the statistics that disprove my theory that over 70% of the efforts that were undertaken were outside of the city of Andalusia, or outside incorporated areas." That means Andalusia, Opp, Florala. And, it was one of those things where we could best address our issue in town, and that was our philosophy. It was not to hurt anybody else or anything. It was just the decision that I made.
Chief, I got to get you out because you got an appointment here very shortly for your retirement. First, thank you so much for coming in. But I'm going to ask you the questions that I'm going to ask. And I'll just let you answer them any way you want to. And that could be a no answer. That could be an answer. You know how it works. And I just got to ask you because this is probably the last interview I do with you as, the chief of police of Andalusia. And it bothers me to say that, by the way. Chief, why have you come under such ridicule, okay, from a local media outlet that was a former employee of yours? And it's been so directed at you. I mean, it's like you're the bullseye target. There's postings in the social media where you're a feather in his cap. This is an accomplishment for him. I got to ask you, I mean, you were friends with him. I even heard you call him like your son at times. How does that bother you? I mean, how does...
Well, professionally, I have to live with it. Personally, it does bother me, Eddie. I went out of my way to help this individual. I offered him employment after he had been terminated from the county. He provided me with a 9-page diatribe that he wrote to Anthony Clark after Anthony terminated him for bad driving habits. So I should have realized then that was quite unusual. Who writes a 9-page letter after being fired? So I did offer this individual employment, and that was on a part-time basis. Then it became a full-time basis, and then he got involved in purchasing a radio station, local radio station, and he opted to go back on part-time, which he didn't do what he was supposed to do. Then we had the altercation with Senator Lowell Barron that occurred, and that was a very embarrassing situation to me and to the Andalusia Police Department. And then finally, it got to be where consequences of bad behavior and
On his behalf?
on his behalf, his driving habits and other issues with the department. You know, one of the things that upset the officers as much as anything was we had a barricaded suspect one day, and he was broadcasting live from the scene, and he had no better judgment than to broadcast and was describing each movement that each officer was making.
I recall that well.
And
We were there.
then on top of that, he had a police radio that was issued to him that he had managed somehow to obtain a frequency on that radio that he was not supposed to have, and he was literally allowing the transmissions from the IRT commander to the IRT team members of what moves to make, and that was being broadcast over the airwaves in Andalusia. The members of the incident response team en masse objected so vehemently to that it caused me to realize that somebody that had no better judgment than that couldn't separate that issue of radio station personnel and part-time police officer, that there were some issues there. It was well reported during the campaign that there was a complaint on his driving, his company vehicle, and the way he had responded to a police chase that had been terminated out on 84 East at Sitel. You know, we have video, in-car camera video of him driving probably at 90 plus miles an hour in his truck. We have video of him being the only occupant in the truck. So when he ran a citizen off the road, then I had no choice but to deal with that from a basis of employment. And because even though he was on his truck and all this other, he still occupied the position as a part-time law enforcement officer or police officer with the city of Andalusia. So apparently when I terminated him from that employment status, that blew the lid off, and all-out war ensued. I guess when you know, I've been reminded many times, Eddie, in the last 13 years, boy, you ain't from here. That's the first strike.
Yeah.
And secondly, I disrupted Camelot. And you know, when you mess around at Camelot and you offend some of the members of Camelot, I guess you open yourself up. But you know, I'm a big boy. The things, and let me make this abundantly clear. The decision and the timing of my retirement had absolutely nothing to do with anybody in the world.
My next question.
Except for me. When I took this job, I assured Earl Johnson I was good for 10 years. That was 3 years ago. I'm here 3 years past what my plans were to be. And so for him or anybody else, I want to make that abundantly clear. It was not Earl Johnson. It's not the radio station owner. There's no other politician involved in it. My decision to retire is solely mine. It was on a delayed schedule because, like I said, it was supposed to have been 3 years ago. And so now that I'm on Medicare and I'm eligible for Social Security, signed up, my first check should be deposited on December the 31st. So if he takes credit for it or anybody else takes credit for it, trust me, citizens of Covington County and Andalusia, that is a crock of it. Because the decision to leave this job, I have been honored and blessed to have served in this position 13 years. It's one of the highlights of my 41-year career in law enforcement. But the decision to leave this job is mine and mine alone, and it was based on my schedule, nobody else.
Well, you answered like 3 questions I had going for you, so I appreciate.
Well, I figured that one was somewhere down in there.
It was. Well, I guess my next and final question for you will be, what will you, if you meet him or you have an opportunity to talk to your replacement, what would you tell him? The best advice you can give after all these years.
maintain your integrity and your character. Because when you get down to it, everything else goes away. Everything else is subject to deteriorate. But if you can maintain your integrity and your character, there's one thing about all of these things that have been published and all the accusations that's been made from different areas and different directions about me, there's not a single one of them that can allege that I have lied to them or that I have not maintained as high a level of integrity and character as is absolute possible for a person to do. I would encourage my successor to realize the value of the assets that he has in the department. The citizens of Andalusia and other areas that when they're called on, they are blessed, Eddie, because we have some very, very dedicated and some very, very well trained and equipped officers to do their job, if they're allowed to do it. That is a very positive aspect of the person that will take my place. He's got a good foundation to work with. I would encourage him to don't ever allow that bar to be lowered. If it requires, this old saying, go along to get along. Well, if you can't get along with everybody else, then require them to raise their standards to where yours are. Don't lower your standards, and that's one thing that I hope and pray doesn't happen, that in this subjective world of getting along, that you say, okay, well, we're going to tear this one down so it will be equal to this other one. Maintain this level and require them to raise their standards, to come up. And, I don't intend to have any conversations with whoever, whatever ends up being the situation, Eddie. If they call me and ask me specific questions, I will respond specifically, but I'm not going to interfere. The person that I replaced, the last permanent chief that was here before I took this job, he came to my office one time. He offered me one very good piece of advice. He shook my hand and he left. I have not seen him since. And most likely that will be my position. I can't run it anymore. As of the 30th day of this month, and for realistically at 2 o'clock this afternoon, that won't be my job anymore. If somebody has a specific question, I will try to respond to that. But as far as giving advice or showing up down here expecting to be asked questions or to offer my suggestion, it ain't going to happen. Because I was blessed when I took the job. The only thing I can assure you with 110% accuracy, the situation is in better shape today with what we've been able to accomplish than it was 13 years ago. And I will tell the citizens of this community, you always hear it in the sports genre, don't take anything back to the dressing room. Well, folks, my tank is empty. You've gotten it all, and I'm satisfied with what I've been able to do. I hope that I have lived up to your expectations, and all I can ask is that God continues to bless us and He continues to bless the United States of America.
Wow.
And that's it.
Chief, I appreciate your 13 years. And good, bad, or indifferent, we're certainly in a lot better place than we were 13 years ago. I was a resident of this community then, been here, I've seen the changes, I've been affected by the changes, and you are leaving a fine department, and you've done well. And
well, I just ask the folks to support the people that are here, the officers that are here, irregardless of where the leadership comes from, if it's from within, and that's certainly capable, competent to do, or if it's from without. I will encourage the people to support the officers that are here because they are career people. they have made their decision to work for this department, and they have done everything they can to raise themselves up to that standard. And all I can do is commend them. Those that have striven to improve themselves have, and so we're just in better shape than we were.
Chief, got to go. But everything being said, we really pray for this community right now. We have no idea who your replacement will be. Some pretty big shoes are going to have to be filled. And what I hope is that a little bit of what you said today will start a healing process in this community, because this community unfortunately has been torn asunder through the social media, through politics, and you have been a step ahead of that, and I personally appreciate that. You haven't let the politics get involved in your decision making, and honestly, I don't think it ever could happen that way with you. And you're leaving some good folks behind, and they love you and they care about you. I've talked to a number of them over the past month, and I don't think, except for a certain few, that and we know who those are, but they're going to miss you. And job well done. We hope that we're blessed with the same opportunity that we had with you in the beginning. So,
Thank you, Eddie. I appreciate it.
hey, grandkids are great.
Yes, sir.
You're going to enjoy them, aren't you?
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
God bless.